So your ex is getting married. And just by the fact that you're here, I'm expecting that you're taking it hard. Perhaps harder than you expected to take this news. First, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're facing this news, and I'm sorry that you're struggling. So first, I just want to help you understand kind of what happens when new information comes to light to help you make sense a little bit of maybe how you're feeling right now. So I like to call, kind of that post-acute phase of healing, kind of the status quo. You may not be completely okay, but you're pretty much okay. You know where you stand. You know, kind of where the sadness is. You know kind of how you're generally going to do at a certain point. You've come to terms with the situation. You've accepted things, done some processing, and maybe you feel like you've made some inroads on moving on. And then comes the information. And the best way that I can think of to describe it is body slammed. I mean, it is a visceral reaction when you receive new information. Whether it be that your ex is getting married or that your ex is expecting a child or something else. And at first it's a shock. I mean, it is a complete and utter shock. And it sends you spinning. It sends you, sometimes it seems like back to square one of healing. And it's frustrating because you feel like all the past months or years have been a waste. And it's also scary because you thought you were on firm footing and now you're like, oh no, maybe I'm not as healed as I thought I was. But here's the truth of it though. You're not back at square one. You've simply gained that new information that now you need to assimilate and process. And that's kind of that third stage. So, you went from your status quo to your body slammed, and now it's time for that processing and assimilation. And after that, you know what? You'll be back at status quo again. Now, the search for my ex is getting married and it hurts is the most common way that people find my blog. So you're not alone. That's one of the more difficult things in divorce is to find out that your partner is moving on in a very real, tangible, public, and pretty permanent way. It's not an easy thing to deal with. And on top of that, we feel like we shouldn't be so upset by it, that we shouldn't be so caught up in it. After all, that's our ex, their marriage has nothing at all to do with me. But our brains are telling us something different. So here's some of the reasons why finding out that your ex is getting married can be so difficult. First, that news tells you that your relationship with them is completely and truly over. And you may have known this, on a rational level. Maybe you haven't spoken in years. It's obvious that it's over. But oftentimes, even in our subconscious, we kind of hold on to this little shred of hope, this little belief that, hey, maybe somehow it'll work out again. But their wedding is a sign that, no, your chapter, your story with them is over. And that can be a hard loss to accept. Finding out that your ex is getting married can give you a sense that you're being replaced. We all want to feel loved. We all want to feel special. And we want to think that, we held such an important place in their lives that maybe they're not going to be able to move on. Maybe they're not going to be able to find somebody else like us. And it can be hard for the ego and otherwise to see that, hey, they have found somebody. And it's even harder when you see pictures. I hope you're not social media stalking them. But when you see pictures and you see that tangible proof of this person, and there's this weird sort of deja vu almost when you see a picture of them together, because you're almost taken back to pictures of you and them. Only now you've been cut out and it's like somebody else has been photoshopped in your place. So it can be a very strange feeling. And an extension of that is that feeling that, that should have been me. So this is especially common if you and your ex were not married and yet you were hoping for or planning for a wedding. Only now they're marrying somebody else instead of you. It also can be common if you never had children with your ex, or you were looking for another child that never came, and now they're expecting with somebody new. There's this feeling that, hey, that was supposed to be my story. I'm supposed to be that one with them living there. And so it's really, really hard to see that they're living your story, but with a new character. Sometimes we struggle to see them happy. I know for me, I had this weird feeling at the beginning, like my happiness and his happiness were somehow tied together. Like we were playing tug of war with happiness and only one person could win. And it was especially true towards the beginning when I saw evidence that he was happy with his other wife. And I knew the reality of my own life, that I was still struggling to sleep through the night. And so that just didn't feel fair. It didn't feel right. And this is one of those that takes kind of a couple stages. At the beginning, one of the things to be aware of is that what they're projecting may not be the reality. So you're probably getting a very carefully curated view of their life. Either through social media or what they're choosing to share with you, you're only seeing the best bits. Remember, that's not the whole reality. You don't know if they're getting married simply because they're afraid of being alone. Or it could be that they're getting married because they're truly in love. But don't make assumptions that cause you undue pain, because you don't truly know. Now, ultimately, the goal is to get to a place where you can be happy for their happiness. But you're not going to get there immediately. So don't put that pressure on yourself right now. Right now, your goal is to be happy yourself. Their happiness can come later. It can be hard to see your ex moving on, especially if you're still feeling stuck. A lot of times those that have the strongest reaction to their ex getting married are those that are wanting to find love again and are still struggling. And so sometimes we feel like we've been left in the dust, like they've graduated and we're still, in remedial kindergarten. Be patient. We all heal in a different timeline, and it could be that theirs is just moving at a little bit faster rate than yours. That doesn't mean that you're not going to get there as well. And then one last reason that it's so hard to see our exes moving on and getting married is sometimes we see that they're making positive changes in their life. And we see that they now are the person that we always wished that they were. And that's so difficult and so frustrating. You just want to scream, why could you have not done this for me? Why could you not have made these changes for me? But yet you're doing them now. But there's a fallacy there. People aren't going to make changes for somebody else. Your ex didn't make these changes for this other partner, this new person. They made the changes for themselves because they were finally at a place where they were ready to make those changes. And it's unfortunate that that happened after you were out of the picture. I'm sorry for that. But be aware to separate that from the current situation. Again, they did this for them. And, like with their happiness, hopefully you can get to a point at some time where you're happy that they made these changes, that they've become a better person. And maybe you can even recognize the role that you played in that journey for them. So right now, today, as you've learned this news that your ex is getting married, you're struggling. You feel like you just slid down a ladder on chutes and ladders and you're back where you started. But you're not. You're going to be okay. This news that right now feels utterly devastating and completely overwhelming will start to not mean so much in a few days, a few weeks, months. It's going to fade. This information is going to be processed and you're going to figure out kind of its meaning in the midst of everything else. And it's just going to be one more data point in all of the information surrounding your breakup. And ultimately, I want you to remember this. Your ex getting married, your ex being in love, your ex having a child, all of those things, they don't say anything at all about you and about your worth and about your future happiness. So let your ex get married. So here's what I want you to do. On your ex's wedding day, I want you to pick from one of the following. You can send them an actual note of congratulations. You can send them a silent wish for a good future, along with a thank you for the role they played in your life. Or you may choose to just keep your mouth shut, buy a pint of Ben & Jerry's, and wallow in your thoughts on your couch with Netflix for the evening. But here's the thing, no matter which way you choose to handle your ex's wedding day, the sun is still going to come up the following day. Your life is still going to go on, and you're going to be just fine.